In this lesson, I will teach you how to rotate the cube horizontally using the ellipse method.
So, what is an ellipse? Basically, it's an oval. A circle is a 2D flat shape, but when we look at it in perspective, it becomes an ellipse. A square is a 2D flat shape, but when we look at it in perspective, it becomes a trapezoid. A cube is basically composed of many squares. So when we look at the cube in perspective, the sides or the planes become a trapezoid. Since a cube is just basically composed of squares, let's see first how a square rotates so we would know how a cube rotates. A square is much simpler, so let's start with that. If we have the pivot at the center, you'll notice that the corners of the square are revolving around a circle. Now, this is a rotating cube. Let's just focus on one plane, which is the bottom, so that it's easier to follow. Currently, it's a trapezoid because we're looking at it in perspective, but we know this is a square just in perspective. So if we rotate this, we'll notice that the corners will revolve around an ellipse. So the concept still applies. We're just looking at it in perspective. So now we know that if we draw an ellipse on the corners, we'll know where to put the corner points when it rotates. Is that information enough to rotate a cube though? Like this one, is this still the bottom plane of a cube? The corners are within the ellipse, so is this still correct? I highly doubt that. Let's go back to our square and search for more clues. If we keep on rotating this square, we'll notice that the inner part will also form a circle. And we'll notice that no line will go inside the circle. If a line does go inside the circle, if we intentionally move this to go inside the circle, we'll notice that it's not anymore a square. So we can use that as a guide. We have an outer circle to know where the corners would revolve to, and the inner circle to keep the lines in check. Now let's go back to our cube and focus on the bottom plane again. Since the perspective equivalent of a circle is an ellipse, let's have the outer ellipse to know where the corners would revolve to and the inner ellipse to keep our lines in check, so we can be sure we maintain its form. So how big should we make the inner ellipse? Let's go back to our square. The inner circle is just about the size of the square, and there is only one point that touches the square. We call this a tangent. So it's not bigger than the square, but it also is not smaller than the square. So let's make our inner ellipse just as big as our bottom plane, with just one point touching the side. If we use this as our guide, the outer ellipse is where the corners would be, and we just need to make sure that the line we would make would only touch one point in the inner ellipse. So make sure the line doesn't go in the inner ellipse, but that it's also not out. With this guide, we can rotate the bottom plane of the cube that looks correct. How about now the rest of the cube? If we rotate the cube horizontally, meaning left to right or vice versa, the planes that we need to focus on are the bottom plane and the top plane. So once we have finished the bottom plane, we just need to create the top plane equivalent of that. And we can also use the ellipse method for the top plane. And once that is done, we just connect the corners.
So how do we rotate this vertically? How can we have the cube either look up or look down?
Previously, we used the ellipse method on the bottom plane and the top plane to rotate it to the left. So when rotating a cube from up to down or down to up, we need to use the ellipse method on the side planes. The concept still applies, but just on the sides. Think of the corners of this side plane revolving around the outer ellipse, and the inner ellipse is just there to keep the lines in check. So you can think of it like this, you can visualize it like this, that if you rotate a cube horizontally, meaning left to right, then you're going to use the ellipse method on the top plane and the bottom plane. But if you are going to rotate it vertically, you use the ellipse method on both of the side planes.
If you enjoyed this video and want to learn more, I teach a Skillshare class on how to draw the head in any angle. Skillshare is a platform where teachers can post their classes online. So if you sign up to Skillshare, not only you get access to my class, but also the classes taught by other amazing Skillshare teachers. And if you use our link, which is found in the descriptions below, you will get a 14-day free trial of Skillshare instead of the standard 7-day free trial found on their website. So if you want to try Skillshare out, make sure to use our link so you get a 14-day free trial instead of 7. Thank you for watching this video, and I hope you learned something, and I hope to see you on the next video.